My dear friends, it is a joy for me to be here with you today again and to continue sharing with you the journey that the Lord has been doing with me. If you remember in my previous talk, I told you how the Lord had made me poor and not just bringing me to a poor country, living in a poor house, eating very poor food, but the kind of poverty, that the Lord brought me was very different. As I told you in the last talk, I just broke down. I went to Rome to study and I couldn't because I felt that something was really broken within me. So I had to give up being a good student and come back to Spain and then start my life in a parish church doing extremely simple things, taking care of the choir, preparing, the bulletin board or the catechism class, or visiting the sick people, humble things, but on the other hand, gave me a sense of values. That is very true as well. Anyway, what I would like to say is that this was the real poverty that the Lord brought me. Be very humble, and have to, again, to surrender all these dreams and illusions of intellectual life, And, okay, before I continue, some of you may have noticed, that today we have a new person here with us in the background. This is a picture of Saint Dominic that I actually found in a car. And I like it so much, that I asked my brother to paint it for me. My brother paints so very well. So Saint Dominic, he was the founder of the Order of Preachers, and I myself, I am happy and proud to be also his follower. And because what we are doing here is just that preaching, I want him to be here with us, with me. And I expect also his blessing and his protection. So dear Father Saint Dominic, pray for us. Okay, very well. So, as I was telling you, my life in 1988 went back to Spain, and I started working in a church. But then I received a new assignment, and from Madrid I was sent to Avila. And because my new job gave me plenty of time, so I tried to study again, just to see whether or not I will be able to study. I enrolled myself in the university in psychology. You may ask, why psychology? 2 reasons. The first, I was really fed up with theology. I am totally honest. After intense years of studying theology, I was already tired. I wanted, to study afresh. And I don't know why, but psychology attracted me. I was very attracted to psychology. So I enrolled myself, and to my surprise, I was able to study. Yes. And I could concentrate, and I enjoyed it. Psychology is a science with a totally different method than theology. More practical, more empirical, more down to earth. And this is what I needed. As I told you before, during the years I studied for priesthood, I fully identified myself with this, with my head, And somehow I detached myself from my emotions and my body. And I experienced that I needed to reconnect. So when I started to study psychology, I also did this homework, the reconnection with my physical person, with my physical self, with my body, and with my emotions. If you remember, I told you that I had repressed my childhood, and I even thought that my childhood was a happy one. Then memories started, to emerge, and then I realized that actually, my childhood, it was not a drama, but as I have already told you and shared with you, I was not a happy child, So I had to come to terms with that, to the reality of my childhood. And very interesting, because in my childhood I experienced humiliation. Then I also realized that one of the powerful reasons, and motives to study was to feel respected, to be someone, to be important, not to be or not to feel humiliated again. Although it was not the only reason, because I did enjoy and I did like to study, but actually this drive, to be someone, and I had to come to terms with that also, and relinquish and surrender also that drive. So slowly, gently, the Lord took me in that path of reintegrating myself, reconnecting. And after many years, now looking in hindsight, I realize how amazing God is, how wise. When I look back, and then I experienced, yes, it's true, that I went through a crisis, a breakdown. But actually that breakdown was a necessity. As you know, I was sent to study in Rome theology, and things were supposed to go that way. I like theology. I think I was good at that, But actually, although I may have enjoyed theology, my character, my personality is not a theologian. I am a psychologist. And you may think, what is the difference between a theologian and a psychologist? Okay, a theologian is an intellectual, It's a person that labors and thinks and analyzes and works with his mind. That is a theologian. Of course, the object of theology is God. But the tools are the analytical mind. Whereas a psychologist, it is a totally different endeavor, especially for myself as a clinical psychologist, is mostly connect with people and foster psychological and spiritual growth. And also the understanding of our human and spiritual life is different from a theologian than a psychologist. Theologian, as I said, is a purely, rational approach. But for us psychologists, we need to somehow, come to touch with reality. We are empirical. We need somehow data coming from matter. We are not just satisfied with beautiful theories, That is why if I had just become a theologian, I will not be fulfilled and happy, I need people. And I need to connect with them, And again, psychology has given me these tools. So I started to study psychology. I like it. I was very good at that, I think. And after finishing the first degree, I was invited to continue my studies and do the doctorate. It was a long journey, but also extremely fulfilling. And what I would like to emphasize, is that when I started psychology, I was not looking for God. I mean, in my studies. Obviously, psychology is about human behavior, so actually what I was looking for is to understand myself better and others as well, But something I will tell you later on is how actually psychology brought me back to God, and totally unexpectedly. So I was in Madrid at the time, in the years 1993, 4, 5, 6, and then something happened. Let me tell that at that time I was already recovered, let us say, from the painful crisis, painful depression, breakdown, and my life somehow was, becoming more solid and stable. Imagine, Madrid is a wonderful city, full of possibilities, full of wonderful people, rich in every respect. Even nature is beautiful in Madrid. I had the opportunity at least every 2 weeks to go to the mountains and enjoy, the fresh air, the wonderful walks. I had great colleagues and classmates that we used to meet up and share and have projects together. I also was very involved, with prayer groups that gave me a wonderful sense of joy and fulfillment, of belonging. I even had a few clients that I helped to grow and to heal, work in the parish. So my life was nice, and much more than that, wonderful, I would say, My family was always within reach. And imagine how beautiful it is that not only on holidays, but any other weekend, you could just take the train or the bus and go to visit them. Salamanca and my sister. So what else would I expect? So I was really hoping, to remain there and even continue all my life in Spain. But then, something happened that really rocked my boat, because a new provincial was elected. And then this new provincial, as soon as he could, he tried, to send me away from Spain to the countries of mission, This happened in the summer of 1997. Let me explain for those of you who may not know that I am a Dominican, but I also belong to a province that by nature is a missionary province. Our province was founded at the end of the 16th century, to evangelize Asia. So I knew that my province was a missionary province. But let me tell you that the reason that actually I ended up in this province was totally by accident, really, totally and absolutely by chance. My mother sent my brother and me to the boarding school that belongs to our province, and the only reason is because it was closer to home, not far away. Other other provinces also had boarding schools, but much, as I say, much farther away. So my mother decided that why not go there. So I ended up, in this province. So as the year passed by, I finally, had a sense of belonging. So it never occurred to me, to change to another one, because it would have meant a really changing family, So things were like that. And when I was going to be ordained, the provincial simply asked me, to stay in Spain or in Europe and study. He didn't say that I should go to Japan or Taiwan or Hong Kong or the Philippines or other places. So I really was extremely, extremely happy remaining in Europe or in Spain. But then this new provincial came. And he asked me, Vincent, you have to go to Asia. And it is as if I had swollen, a frog. My gosh, going to Asia. I knew where Asia was. I knew, but I didn't want to go there. He said, you have to go to Hong Kong. I also knew that Hong Kong was in Asia and that there Chinese was spoken. But really for me, had no feeling whatsoever, On the other hand, I also recognized that his request, was fair, because other classmates of mine were also sent to Asia, or to other countries. And so the fact that I was requested, and asked, it was not inappropriate, it was not unfair. So finally I said yes. The provincial asked me, how long do you need to finish your study, your dissertation? I said, 2 years, I need 2 years. And then he said, okay, you have 1. Okay. So I applied myself to, to continue and to advance the thesis as much as I could. And thanks be to God, I had very good help from my advisor, and things were more or less ready. At least the study was arranged, was done, and I was more or less ready to go to Hong Kong in 1998. Although the thesis was not finished, but I knew I would be able to do it and finish the thesis in Hong Kong. The point is that during this year, I prepared myself psychologically, to go to Hong Kong. I tried to see the positive side, that I will go to a new culture, new people, new environment, and that all these things will be great and wonderful, and it will be a beautiful experience, So I was ready to go there, and with me came along another father, whose job was to be the assistant of the provincial for 3 years, Both of us went to Hong Kong, and we landed at the beginning of November, of 1998. And I remember my feelings. The first thing I remember was, the thickness of the humidity, By that time in Spain, the air was so chilly and so dry, but here in Hong Kong was humid and thick. And then I remember, the trip from the airport to our house in Kowloon Town, the road and the houses. And I was looking around, and we landed in our house in Kowloon Town, and everything was under renovation, and I was already in shock. And that shock lasted for 1 week, compounded by the fact that I couldn't sleep at night, of course, because of the jet lag, and the feeling of irreality. Where am I? What am I doing here? Nights were agonic, really. I remember that after a few nights, the situation improved. But simply, what am I doing here? One day I remember distinctly, being in a shopping mall in Lok Fu. I was sitting, in a bench, and in deep desolation, asking myself, what is this? What am I doing? I was really, 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 really shocked. And I knew that I had to be there for the rest of my life. Okay, days continued, and I started to study Chinese. On the other hand, I had to work hard on my dissertation. And although I was good with languages before, but you know, Chinese was cruel to me. And you know, the classes in the Chinese university, you know, for me were so hard and so painful. The first group I went with, all of them were Asian people, you know, people from Japan, Korea. And for them, everything was easy. For me, everything was painful and difficult. Days went on, and I still have, you know, the letters I used to send to my friends. And when I look at the letters, I realize how difficult everything was for me. Very much so. On the other hand, you know, if I had to study in Hong Kong, or to stay in Hong Kong for just, let us say, 3 years, like my friend, I think that I will be, on the other hand, very happy. Take it as a kind of adventure, you know, an experience, you know, to know or to another part of the world, and then you come back. You don't need to cut your roots. You don't need to cut, you know, these relationships. But I knew, and it was very painful to me, you know, that some of my friendships, I couldn't, you know, continue, because I'm not good at that either, you know. I'm not good at, in the distance, you know, maintain and keep the contact. I am not good at that. So everything was difficult. Everything was really painful. Really painful. To the point that once a week or once every 2 weeks, I used to go to the mountain and just cry. And just really cry. And talking to God. And then I continued and tried to pull myself up and go to the Chinese university and study Chinese. And having no... the only comfort I used to have was watching TV. Huh? Really. And I managed myself, you know, to entertain myself. But painful and difficult. And with tremendous temptations, you know, to quit. And to go to another country where Chinese will not be spoken. Either to go to Latin America or to go back to Spain. And I knew I could do it. It's not I was afraid of God. I knew, but you know, deep inside me, and this is something I would like to stress, you know, I knew that God had brought me to Hong Kong out of love. That it was not the provincial, you know, this person, this provincial. It was not him. So that is why sometimes people say, oh, when you talk or when you say that God has talked to you, actually it is you yourself talking to yourself. It is not. Because actually that voice that God had brought me to Hong Kong, it is not what I wanted to listen. Because, you know, if I had felt in my heart, Vincent, leave Hong Kong, go to Spain, then I would immediately had followed that voice. But the voice I heard is, stay, I'm here with you. When I was, since I was young, you know, the call, the vocation to Abraham, leave your home and your country and go to the place I will tell you. These words always have resonated with me, always. deep within me, you know. And now they became true in my life. Vincent, leave your home, in your place, in your nation, your country, Spain, and go to the place. Not the place that you will choose, but the place I will tell you, to Hong Kong. So, somehow, all these words really gave me peace, you know. I could feel, I have said this many times, you know, but this is so true, that in the darkness of that night, you know, in the deep darkness, there was, you know, a beautiful, small, but beautiful, shiny little star. The star was there, you know, shining in the light. And for me, that star was enough. It was not complete darkness, you know. Of course, I could leave Hong Kong anytime. I could do my will, but then the star will not go with me. So I continued. I remained in Hong Kong day by day, but actually I couldn't see any future in me. I couldn't see any future. I couldn't see any future in my work, because I was supposed to be working in a school, in Rosary Hill School, and that work was not appealing to me at all. I have never expected to work in a school. So I couldn't see any future. Also Chinese, you know, being so difficult, I could not even picture or imagine myself, you know, as doing anything meaningful in Chinese. So I have to say that I could see my life as without any outcome, as wasted. That is the word, wasted, you know. Not to mention, from the perspective of being a psychologist, because by the way, I was able to complete my thesis in year 2000. I was happy to go to Spain and defend the thesis. It was joyful. And then I came back to Hong Kong and things continued the same. Nothing changed. I was already with a title, you know, PhD. But I was as unhappy as ever, you know, and without any future. Because actually, once you finish your dissertation, it is the time, you know, that you need to put your hands to really work. But this is exactly what I was not doing, because I had to study Chinese. I had to drop everything, you know. So my life was wasted. That is how I felt, a wasted life. And then the funny thing is that it came to me the words of Jesus in the gospel. If someone, for my sake, and the gospel, loses his life, will win it. And then, oh my gosh, then this is exactly what is happening to me. I am wasting my life for you. So somehow also these words, you know, gave me comfort, a great comfort, you know. Okay, Jesus, so I'm happy because I am wasting my life for you. By the way, I have told you before, you know, I started psychology with no intention, you know, to find God there, just to understand myself better. But it is very interesting to know that many psychologists actually, you know, have moved beyond, you know, the limits of the, I would say, rational mind, and they have started to write on spirituality. So I was very pleased to read many of these books. So psychology, you know, brought me back to spirituality. I remember especially that I was very into Ken Wilber, you know, a kind of philosopher and psychologist who has written extensively on spirituality. So something happened one day reading one of these books. But now it is the time. It is already already 30 minutes have passed, and I would like to share this on the next talk. So thank you very much.